Hello everybody and welcome back to the Stitching Corner with Kirsten Edwards. Thank you for subscribing last week. I hope to make these videos every week and I'm planning to make them on Fridays. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, I'd like to do an update on my crochet baby blanket. It's going well, if a little bit slow, but I have made a whole lot of new squares. And here they are, and I've just got to sew them together. That one's partly done. I've just got to sew them together to make another row. So I've done a couple of rows. I really need to move a bit faster with this, but that's how I'm going so far. The other thing that I've been working hard on is the Sultan's box, and here it is. Okay, I have a little bit to talk about with this. Okay, as you can see, I have stitched 4 triangles and it's looking good. Now, there's been some big changes since I talked about it last week. Last week, I talked about using a thread, gold thread that had quite a bit of memory. And after stitching one of the triangles with it, which you can see here, I thought, I don't want to stitch 16 triangles with this thread. It was quite difficult to work with and I didn't enjoy it at all. So I abandoned that thread. And I tried a few others. I tried a gold braid from Crochet. It was just too big. And then I tried a blending filament thread from Crochet. And this is it stitched here on its own. And then I thought it's too light, so I combined it with a yellow silk thread. And here's the yellow silk thread here. It's a nice 1-ply silk thread from hand-dyed fibers. And I combined it with the blending filament and I really liked it. Now with the blending filament from Crochet, I do something with it. Here it is here. Some people hate using this stuff because it's so fidgety, but I do find that if you moisten the threads together, it's a lot easier to work with. And I haven't found it too bad. As long as I stick to a hoop and go slowly, it's fine. But what I do with the thread, and you don't have to do this, but this is what I've decided to do, is I remove the white. See, the thread is a gold thread and wound around a piece of white thread. I remove the white thread and you just pull it out slowly and it's gone. You put it aside and then you're just left with this very fine gold thread. And if you moisten it, if I put a bit of water on my fingers and I moisten it, just see it goes out straight, where before it was curling all up. And then I combine that with my silk thread and I stitch that way. The reason I got rid of the white thread was that it was interfering with the look of the stitching. See at the top here? That's where the white thread is. It really does take away from the gold and it leaves kind of a little bit of a fuzzy look, and I didn't want that, so I just removed it out. Once you've removed that white thread, you've got to be careful you don't stretch this gold thing, this gold thread. You got to be really careful because it will stretch. See, I'm pulling it and it's stretching. You don't want that happening with your embroidery. Okay, so I've changed threads. I'm using a hoop instead of a stand. So I'm up to my 4th triangle. It takes me about an hour and a half to stitch each triangle. And for a look, I attached one acrylic bead there. And guess what? I didn't like it. I thought it's not shiny enough. It doesn't gleam enough. So I have searched online and I've ordered some 4mm flatback crystals. Proper glass crystals, and they're gold and they will look absolutely stunning with this. Now I did say I was going to use 6mm, but once I stitched it up I realized that 4mm was fine, was absolutely big enough, so I've ordered 4mm ones. Now around each triangle I have back stitched, and this will be used later for when we whip stitch the triangles together, and I haven't used gold thread in there. I've just used a single strand of this gold silk thread. So that's where I'm up to. So I'm a quarter of the way there because 4 4s are 16. So it's going to take me a few weeks to stitch this, but I'll keep going. All right, so that's how we are going with the Sultan's gift box. Now, lastly today, before I go, I would like to talk about a book. And the book is called Mary Thompson Dictionary of Embroidery Stitches. Now, I've had this book for many years, and it is the go-to book for me when I want to know about an embroidery stitch. This book was first published in 1934, and it's gone through enormous changes over the years, but it's been reprinted again and again and again, and now there is a 2018 edition out there somewhere that you can buy in the stores and online, and it's edited by Jan Eaton, and it's a very much different book from the original one, but it is still called Mary Thomas's Dictionary of Embroidery Stitches. Now, who is Mary Thomas? Well, Mary Thomas was a woman like you and me, but she was from England, and she served as a nurse during the First World War. She lived in various places. She started off in England, she moved over to the States for a while, and then she moved to France to start a school with her husband, but that didn't work out, and she ended back up in England. And she was obviously a very accomplished needlewoman, and she worked for an English magazine called The Needlewoman. And after she resigned, she published a number of needlework books, and this was the first one, Mary Thompson's Dictionary of Embroidery Stitches. Now, this is a 1949 edition, okay? And I will put all the details of this in the description of this video, and also I will put a link to where you can find out more information about Mary Thomas herself. So there's the first edition, 1934, and then it was reprinted in 1949. So this is the edition that I have. I do recommend looking for one of the original editions in the first 10 years, because they're very much different to the editions today. It actually pays to have a few editions of this book, not just one book. It's changed so much over time, and it really does sort of trace the history of needlework. It's a great book. Now, why do I love this edition so much? Well, I love this edition because of the illustrations. Okay, so if I turn to a random page, you can see here that it always illustrates the stitch, and then it describes the stitch. It talks about what thread you should use, what you can use the stitch for, and some tips when making the stitch. And also what I love about this book is the adorable little illustrations that go along with some stitches. So I found some that I quite like. Here's the daisy stitch. I just love these illustrations. I think they're gorgeous. And here we have, and there's a few of these plates throughout the book, a sampler of drawn fabric stitches. Now, I love drawn thread work, and this is exceptionally useful when looking at what the stitch actually looks like stitched up, because you can illustrate it like this, but it looks very different on the fabric. So it's really useful to have these plates, and there's about 3 or 4 of these plates throughout the 1949 edition. Okay, here we go. Here's the faggot stitch. So faggot is kindling wood that you put on the fire, and here's one of the little pigs building his faggot house. And where's another one I liked? Oh, I like the stem stitch. There he is, watching his flowers grow, and there's the stems of his flowers. So I just love the little illustrations in this book. Sometimes I just look through it just to look at the illustrations. They're just so lovely. And it's a beautiful old book, and it's in great condition. And you can pick up old needlework books on eBay or abooks, abe.com or .co.uk. And you should be able to find plenty of variety of editions of this book. All right. Well, that's all I have today to share with you. I hope you will share this video with your friends and ask them to subscribe, and I will see you next week. Happy stitching.